You want to know what? Yes, one of the things that I actually, and I do want people to like and subscribe our page and share it with your friends. I
Yeah,
think
for
we're
sure.
doing something that's important and special and just fun in general. But another thing that I kind of wanted to forge is that I want people to like and subscribe so me and Andrew can maybe start to think about going live with this when we have the opportunity to get more interactive. The fun thing about building something out on YouTube isn't just like loving the content that you're doing, but it's
Yeah.
the opportunity for interaction. Interactions only going to happen with growth.
So today we're doing two songs about change, actually, which is good
Yep.
for, I guess, the beginning of a school year. Tupac's song Changes, and a song by a band called Rush called Circumstances. And so yeah, let's get into it a little bit. I think this is going to be an interesting conversation.
I do too. Where do you want to start?
We can start with Pac. Pac's page is on top of my little stack here.
Okay. This is quite frankly, this is the Tupac that I love, that I want to be remembered and that I think should be remembered.
Okay.
Like one of the beautiful things about Tupac, the artist
Mm-hmm.
and the person, very, very multifaceted. Not all of it always positive,
Right.
but the uh, the part of him that cares
Mm-hmm.
about common man, the part of him that cares about his community and his culture specifically, the part of him that's a philosopher.
Yeah, this is definitely a philosophical song for sure.
Right, the part of him, and he's highly philosophical.
Mm-hmm.
He's actually one of our better philosophers, like coming out of Black culture, like period. If you actually listen to the words that he has espoused over the
Yeah.
duration of his brief
The whole
tenure.
rose and concrete thing. Yeah, man.
Yeah, the whole rose and concrete thing. Yeah, like his perspective is very much that. It's very apropos that there was a book of his poetry released under that name. I actually love that they did that. That was one of the few posthumous things that I truly enjoyed that was done in honor of him. But this is the Tupac that everybody fell in love with too, I believe, before the incarceration, the trial, the shooting. And so this is, this is the guy that wrote Dear Mama,
Yeah.
so many tears,
And
keep
keep your
your
head
head
up.
up.
Yep.
Yeah, this is that guy. But and one of the most powerful things about him, and you see it in this record, is that you can tell that he doesn't have the answers to the
Yeah.
questions that he's asking. But he also, and I said this, I believe, before about him, and I think I may have said it on According to Hip Hop, and maybe not here, but he makes you feel like even though he doesn't know what the changes should be, he has the power to help incite the change just because he literally, some people just have it,
Yeah.
that persona, that place, that voice that people listen to. And so what you hear on this song is that, well, this is the type of song that Kendrick Lamar and J. Cole were born off of.
Okay.
You
That
know what
makes
I mean?
sense. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like he opened that whole lane up of what they do. This record is one of those things. It's a moniker of that, and it's kind of beautiful because in a way, it's very much more well written than a lot of his best stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like a lot of his most notable stuff. This is actually one of his best. This is the writer that I'm talking about. That it's like
The writing, we'll talk about that later, but the writing is really intricate.
that's what I mean. Is like, well, when people are like, well, he's not a lyricist. It's like,
He can be.
well, well, from the technical writing aspect, superior to almost anybody who's ever picked up a mic. This is prime example type of stuff
Mm-hmm.
because this is I mean, you're an English teacher.
Mm.
I mean, you what this is like. This is
Like,
pretty.
I didn't want to, I didn't necessarily think we were going to get into this immediately, but like the word for it, or one of the words for it is assonance, where you're rhyming or you're echoing the vowel sounds within the words.
Yes.
But like that I see no changes, all I see is racist spaces, misplaced hate makes disgrace to races. I wonder what it takes to make this one better place. Let's erase the waste. Like, oh, I counted there were like 14 or so in those
Okay.
4 bars. Like, it's
Okay.
nuts.
Okay, so this is the part of it I actually want to get into because I think his rhetoric, because of his straightforward approach and style, is something that kind of speaks for itself in a sense. I want to speak into the more nuances of things that he's doing on this record. So the assonance that you're talking about,
Mm-hmm.
like I mean, so explain from an English perspective what assonance, consonants, and dissonance is.
Okay. I think you're thinking of alliteration, assonance, and consonants, which is fine. Alliteration is doing like the same first
Yes,
consonant sounds, like Peter Piper picked
yes,
a peck of pickle, like
yes,
at the
yes,
beginning.
yes. Alliteration. Yes,
Assonance is what we just talked about. All of those A's, changes, racist faces, misplaced hate makes disgrace to races. All those A sounds, that's assonance. Um,
yes,
and consonants is consonants, not NTS, but
yeah.
consonants with a CE at the end.
Yes,
Um, is echoing the echoing consonant sounds at the end of words. So to have a rhyme, you have to have assonance and consonants, because for a rhyme, you have to echo the vowel sound and the closing consonant sound. So the s and like racist faces is consonants and assonants because it has the
right.
s and the a.
Okay. So, as a writer, and also too, this is a time thing too, where Tupac is important. I don't. There have probably been people that there have been people that have surpassed him since then.
Mm-hmm.
But at the time, nobody ever put those literary things together the way that he did. And that's why when people are like, well, he's not a lyricist, it's like, well, technically he's actually superior because he actually, all the alliteration, the consonants, the assonants, well, nobody did it and blended it as well as naturally. On one of his more popular songs with Snoop Dogg, two of America's Most Wanted, he starts off, picture perfect, I paint a perfect picture.
Mm-hmm.
Bomb a hoochie with precision, my intentions to get with her with the S and double OP, dog, my fucking homie. I'm thinking to myself, did you just like spell it out and still use
Yep,
the?
you did, and you did, yeah.
See, I dropped my tap when I said that. It's like, well, who's doing that? Who's spelling out the consonants and the assonants and making it rhyme on the next scheme and entendre while using alliteration? That is lyrically supreme type of stuff.
That's
And much like this start that you named off, oh well, he does that in a 4-bar sequitur to start off that song.
yep.
That
The
that is
ones that I just quoted were the beginning of a verse too. Like
no, so no. This is what I mean about how he's one of the most fundamentally, if not the most fundamentally sound writer ever. He usually starts off all of his songs in 4-bar tangents, where the use of literary devices or whatever you would want to phrase them as is high.
he
Because
also
he's a
uses,
real
not to get
writer.
into it too deep, but uses parallel structure too, because he starts all of the verses with "I see
Yes,
no changes, all I see is blah 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 blah
yes.
blah." Like
And
that's
the
parallel
entire
structure too.
yes. No, no, no. As in, like, that's what I mean. He's a writer. He's a real writer. He's
Yeah.
not, I hate to say it. Okay. I'm probably going to have this conversation on according to hip hop too. He's often compared to from his era, um, Jay-Z and Nas and Biggie, obviously.
Right.
Okay. Like, Nas is not as technically sound as a writer,
Okay.
even though his verbiage, his vocabulary is better.
Okay.
His vocabulary is better. His writing's not necessarily better. From
Okay.
the term of you as an English teacher would look at it if you were to look at what Tupac writes on paper versus what Nas writes on
Okay.
paper. Jay-Z and Biggie are not in that conversation as technical writers, even though Jay-Z uses a lot of literary devices that people talk about.
Right.
It's something that's more unique to the craft of rhyming than writing.
Okay.
What he does. Biggie is the guy that makes you feel like, no, this guy needed to make it rappy. You know?
Okay.
Tupac is the guy that makes you feel like it's like, no, he could have just been a writer or a poet and would have been just as successful.
I mean, he was an actor. He was like the guy that did all of the things, right? I mean, not that those other guys didn't do other things too, but like Tupac was an actor before he hit, right? Like, or he appeared in Above the Rim before that, or no, did he
No,
not?
above the rim is after Juice, but
Okay.
most Tupacalypse now is 1991, and so is
Okay.
Juice. So it's
I know it
all
was early. Yeah.
yeah. So it's like his style. It's blending a lot of things together. He's literally rapping and acting, and it's blowing up at the same time. I think the acting may supersede the rapping by 3 to 6 months in terms of.
Okay.
I think Juice came out before Tupacalypse Now came in. I
Okay.
think, but I'm not certain of that.
But I'm sure they lined it up so they both came out about the same time. If they're doing marketing stuff, I would imagine that's.
I don't even think hip hop was in a place where they understood that level of marketing on that level.
For real.
Because here's what I mean is that well, like Tupac's an aspiring actor, and he's got the lead role in Juice, but the lead song is Juice, Know the Ledge by Eric B. and Rakim, because Rakim is still the greatest MC of all time. It's 1991. You want
Right.
Rakim start your album,
Yes,
not
of
Tupac.
course.
Right. But here's also too what Tupac is excellent at, and this is where he gravitates in this community. Whether and we can get into the technical factuality of some of these things. Is factuality a word?
Yeah.
Ha! Awesome. We can get to actual factuality of some of these things, but listen to what he says. These are the things that resonate in the Black community where he connects in a way that very few do, very much on a Chuck D or Ice Cube level.
Okay.
Listen to this. Pull the trigger, kill a nigga, he's a hero. Give the crack to the kids, who the hell cares? One less hungry mouth on the welfare. This is the stuff that when we as Blacks hear it, it confirms the suspicion that we feel is reality, that some evidence has been uncovered as reality, because Tupac, because at the time he was born, is what we would call an 80s crack baby.
Okay.
He saw the crack epidemic and the Reaganomics in the Reagan era. Okay.
Yeah.
And so
like
that
firsthand.
perspective, firsthand growing up in it.
Yeah, he speaks directly to that in Dear Mama too. We'll talk about that later, but like in a different.
No, it's the crack and the destruction of the Black community via crack is actually one of his it's one of his top 5 talking points. Okay. Actually, if you were to go through his material, especially the stuff before he signs to death row, he's touching on that. He comes from a family of Black Panthers, and so you see the Black Panther tie, because here it goes: 2 shots in the dark. Now Huey's dead.
Yep.
So he's like, it's almost
those
like,
of you don't know, that's Huey Newton, who was one of the founder of Black Panthers. Just
right.
I assume most of the people watching this know that, but just in case.
No, never assume that. Co-founder of the Black Panther Party with Bobby Seals. Correct. So he's touching on the things that the Black community that he's seeing growing up as a young man. But he also comes from a Black Panther family, so there's a lot of Black Panther rhetoric. So you find a lot of who Tupac is, like, just by, and listen to this. You don't have to hear it on the news. You don't have to go to a blog or anything. Finding out about Tupac was as simple and easy as listening to his music, and that's why I wanted to highlight. He touches on so many points about his growing up, the things that he's seen in the Black community, his background as a Black Panther. It's consistent. On Hail Mary, that hook comes from him riding around LA with a Black Panther one day. Do you want to ride or die? They used to go la da da da. That comes from him hanging out with a Black Panther one day.
Okay.
He's consistent.
Like, I didn't know that song from the name, but when you sang it right there, I was like, oh yeah, I have heard that. Yeah.
Yeah, Hail Mary. Like, that came from a Black Panther place. The hook did, you know?
Okay.
So he's consistent with his themes and his archetypes and his motifs about the Black community and about the Black diaspora. You know, the experience of it, the positive and the negative of it, because he talks about how brilliant we are. But he also talks about how messed up it are. But he also talks about the conspiracy theories at the time. You got to look at it from the perspective in the 90s. These things were considered to be conspiracies and not totally factual. People were treating us in the Black community like we had kind of done this to ourselves.
Mm-hmm. And not that it's a setup. Yeah.
Yeah, not that it's a setup. So I think another thing about Tupac, and this is the duality, and this might be the strongest part, where he says it takes skill to be real, time to heal each other.
Yep.
That's the part where you fall in love with Tupac, because you realize through all his duress, he still wants what's best for his community.
Yeah. I wrote this. Actually, one of the lines I wrote on this piece of paper. Go ahead and say what you're saying.
No, because I want, when we do songs like this, I want to get into your notes more, because there's literally so many places for me to go as a fan, as a Black man.
See, like, most of my notes are like come up to here. This one's full up.
No, and I wanted to get into those things, because especially when you're dealing with Tupac, there's so many places that I could take it, and so, like, I would like your notes to be like a healthier, like, navigation guide, because I can do this all day. Like, I could literally do this all day.
Yeah. Tupac's is dense. Yeah, much more dense actually than he gets credit for, like you said earlier.
No,
I actually wrote the sentence. Also, I think of this as a Black Panther song. Like that, I actually wrote that down on the thing. And when we're talking about Huey Newton too, but we already talked about that. I love the contrast though, because there's a lot of one of the Black Panthers' ideologies is about fighting back, right? I mean, and you see that throughout. the song. But we got to be real to each other, heal each other. That's the kind of a hippie-ish kind of thing. Like, I mean, it's not bad. It's just it's so he
Well, he's a
when you
product
say
of the
like you felt not you, but like people fell in love with Tupac, it's like there's a contrast there. There's a he contains multitudes. He's not just this um he's not he came up in the Black Panther world, but he also is not just that. There's way more to him than that, is what I'm trying to
Mhm.
say. Maybe I didn't say it that clearly the first time, but
No, okay, so let's touch on a few things. First of all, the Black Panthers are happening in in Northern California
right,
specifically. You know what I mean? And just in California period specifically, around the same time that that whole hippie movement is coming on.
right.
So when you're
So,
espousing
so
that,
Berkeley, Oakland, I mean, that's the same basic
yes,
place.
it's
Yeah.
the movement, the hippie movement is going on in the same place that
Yep.
yeah, that the Black Panther movement is going
Yep.
on in. And so there is a part of that's what I mean is like he's a little bit of everything. It's like, well, he knows how to speak to the person that wants peace. He knows how to speak to the street dude. He knows how to speak as a politician. Like, listen to this political line.
It's
Because both
beautiful.
black and white are smoking crack tonight.
Yep.
That's something that somebody says when they're running for president. Like
Yep.
he's multifaceted. Like we
Yep.
keep going, and that's what I mean. Is like, well, let's go into your notes because we can go all day about how multifaceted and talented this man is just by breaking down some of the lines. Because it's like line to line, you start seeing his talent, and this is what I mean. He's one of those guys. Well, he was a sponge for his environment.
Yeah. You can tell that like if even if I knew nothing about Tupac just listening to the song, you can hear that.
Yeah, he's a big sponge for his environment, and so that's what makes him so real to people. He's really just spitting out what he soaked up. Literally, it's like he soaked it up and spit it out.
Mhm.
Yeah. And
Okay.
that's what you get. And that's why you get the passion. And that's why you get the pain. That's why you get the hurt. It's like, no, when he's rapping, it really sounds like this is bothering him. That's different. You know,
Hmm.
like Chuck D and Ice Cube sounded pissed off. He touched another nerve. He sounded hurt. Like he was pissed off and he was hurt.
Yeah.
You know? We like listen to how he goes, rat tat 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 tat. That's the way it is.
Yep.
You know what I mean? He's saying it sad, like, damn, like it's not supposed to be that way. Like Chuck and Ice Cube said stuff like that, but they didn't say it in a manner that made you think about it in a somber way, in a
Right.
reflective way. They made you want to go join Farrakhan or the Black Panthers or go pull Reginald Denny out of his truck and hit him with a brick during the riots. Like that's what they made you want to do about the injustice. Pac made you think about the injustice. Pac made you sad about the injustice.
Yeah.
You know, like Fight the Power to me is still the best rap song
Hmm.
ever, in my opinion.
Right.
But it pisses you off and hypes you up more than it makes you
Yep.
think. You know what I mean? Even though the rhetoric is strong, it's Chuck D we're talking about, so it's not like he's lacking anything.
No, it's
Uh,
powerful.
it's super powerful, but it's more riot music and anthem than it is like thoughtful and provoking and somber. But you
Hmm.
get both of those with Pop.
Yep.
Yeah.
And right before the lines use the rat a tat tat, which is the last. Then for those of you who don't know, you need to go listen to the song. The end of the last verse, is he's saying like you've got to be. I'm badly butchering this, but it's something like you got to watch for all the people coming back after you, like somebody he jacked up
Some
when
young
he was
buck
little.
that you roughed up way back. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
So
that
he's the this I think adds to that. It just occurs to me like this adds to his legend too because he is both he and Biggie are sort of predicted their own deaths
yes.
and so like he
Prophecy.
like and either we don't at least the wider culture doesn't know who killed Tupac or he or whatever. I mean, there's obviously thousands of conspiracies about this, but we don't necessarily need to get into. But from a distance, it looks like that's what happened to him. Like that somebody came back from his youth maybe and got him. Like I don't know, but like
That you want to know? I've never actually thought of that till you said that. There's a retaliatory mode that comes with, inner city living in black communities.
mhm.
And especially in California because of gang culture and gang life. Super retaliatory at
You see
times.
this in like mob movies too. Like I mean, it's the same. It's not the same, but like the idea of somebody coming back that you wronged like 25 years ago and
Yeah.
snatching you up later, like, or my
No,
dad was blah 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 blah, whatever.
well, that was a thing too. So even look at it like this. I can remember E40 talking about the first time he recorded a song with Tupac. E40's one of the legendary rappers out of the Bay
This is a
Area.
Bay, yeah.
He's actually one of the first guys to really be up on game in Cali. Like he precedes a lot of guys.
Mm-hmm.
You'll actually see him courtside a lot
At the
at the
Warriors
Golden State
games,
Warrior
yeah.
games
That's where
now.
I know. That's where I'd heard of him first from. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No. 40's tight. I like 40. I've always liked 40. He talks about how when they met, 40 had to take his two. I think he said he had two Glocks or it was two nines or whatever, and he
Mm-hmm.
two Glock nine. It might have been two Glock nine, and sat him down. You know what I mean? So he could write. And Pac came in and actually did the same thing. And they was both like sitting down. It was either a table on the floor, like with their pistols down right there, because Pac was talking about like somebody, you know what I'm saying, and how
Yep.
he had to roll. And I mean, so it's real. It was like that, you know what I mean? So there are even stories of Pac like walking in the studio off the streets, taking his pistols out, boom, having to sit him, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and also understand too, and because he's so larger than life, Pac is smaller than me and you. Pac's about 5'7", 155,
Yeah.
165.
He didn't look like a big dude.
Not a big guy. About 5'7", 165.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, how tall are you?
5'10", 9, 10.
Yeah, I feel like because you and I are about the same height. Like
Yeah.
we're almost a few inches. We're pretty much a few inches taller than Pac.
No, I mean,
Right. So you also look at
I
it
don't
from
want to say he's intimidating, but like he does have that
he has a
kind
persona
of
that's bigger than what
persona
he is.
that you're like,
Well, this is what I mean. The inner city will do that to you when you're a smaller person. Like, I mean, not being funny, I'm not comparing myself to Tupac in any way, but when I walk in a room, people are like, "Am I like you walking, you talking, you act like you're 6'2", 6'3". Well, I kind of had to sometimes.
mm-hmm.
You feel me? There's kind of a
Yeah.
moniker that comes with it, but there's also the reality of your safety being in danger when you're smaller. You know what I mean? Like
Okay.
E40, not a small dude. You know what I'm saying? Pac was. You know what I mean? So he's
Yep.
rolling a certain type of way, and he's expressing that in his music as well.
And these other guys that they're rolling, like Suge Knight, for example, that's a big dude right there.
Big dude. I mean, Dre's a big dude. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Dre's about 6'1", about 200 something. That
Yeah.
was before he started
I mean, he's
lifting weights.
solid. Yeah.
Yeah, it was before he started lifting weights. He was like 6 feet, 6'1", 2 something.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Before like he started bodybuilding. Like he wasn't a small dude.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Ice Cube's not a small dude. Ice Cube's about our height and bigger than us. You know what I'm saying? Physically, stature wise. Yeah. So, people don't think about that when they think about how some of these guys talk tough. It's like some of these smaller guys got to talk tougher, actually carry more heat. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Like, because physically it can be imposing. It's like Tupac would not want to fight the game one-on-one. You know what I'm saying? The game is 6'5", and you know what I mean? And there are dudes like that in Cali that have been to prison-like game that are built look different. Like, those scenes where, it's kind of funny. You want to know those Cali things that's real that I seen from when I was out there? When they show the guys like that are like sitting on the workout bench out on the front lawn and the gang. No, that shit real.
Mm.
Yeah, brothers maxing out on the front lawn and stuff, getting swole. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. It's part of the culture. So he touches a lot. And specifically why the West Coast love him, this feels even the stuff that he's speaking to. First of all, when you're talking Yui, that's going to resonate more on the West Coast because that's where it started. Yep. So he's talking like a California dude, even though he's really from the East Coast.
Right.
Right. I want to get back to some more of your notes because this is what I mean. I can keep riffing for days.
Yeah. One of the other things that I noticed as I listened to this, I mean, this is a song that I've known for a long time, obviously. This is one of those that definitely penetrated the wider culture. Like
that's amazing.
The three songs, like, I mean, the three, and there are the three that we'll cover, or at least three of them we will cover on here, are Dear Mama and Keep Your Head Up and Changes. Those are the three that kind of crossed the line. I mean, I know about Hit 'Em Up, but those are ones that like I had to like go research myself, as opposed to like those three have like those are ones that I'd known for a while. One of the first things though that I noticed as I started listening to this closely is that maybe it's not actually faster than most hip hop songs, but it feels like the beat's faster. Like I don't know, maybe it's not, I don't know, but like I wrote it's not quite frantic, but he's going a little faster to keep up, and I think that adds to the intensity of what he's saying.
Okay, so for Tupac, this song is definitely a lot faster.
Yeah.
He is a more throaty stretch, the consonants
Hmm.
with a T
Yeah.
in vowels of his words as he is rapping.
Okay.
Come with me,
Mm.
Hail Mary, one quick seat. He's more likely to do
Okay.
that. And so you'll find him rapping over beats like that more often.
Okay.
I think that this beat was literally made to cross over to people like you.
Yeah.
I personally, I love the writing of this record. This isn't even one of my probably favorite 15 Tupac records.
All right.
So this song itself in our community is probably more important to his overall legacy than it is in this community.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
I think so. Yeah. Say
And
more.
some of that, and some of that is the beat is a little bit more accessible and pop
Mhm.
friendly and faster than most of his classic stuff if you go listen to it.
And they have
Um,
singable hooks too. I'm like, that's just the way
right.
it is. Right. I mean, you have to
That's a
live that
big
too.
that's the big part because I'll tell you what he has another record that's very comparable to this called I Wonder If Heaven Got a Ghetto. Pace wise and BPMs
Hmm.
wise, it's very comparable,
Okay.
but it feels more like the raw Tupac, not the formulaic Tupac. There's some formula to this record. Like on If I Wonder If Heaven Got a Ghetto, he says like, and Bush can't stop the hit. I predicted the shit into Tupacalypse. Like on my first album, I predicted that Bush wasn't going to be able to stop that whole Desert Storm thing like he said he would,
Right.
which he did. If you actually go back and listen, but on that song, it's like, well, the hook just goes, I wonder if heaven got a ghetto. And there's just a girl going, and just kind of
Hmm.
singing. It just feels like
Yeah.
a little bit more not for radio. You know,
Right.
this
Yeah. For
feels like
sure.
this is the powers that be putting Tupac out on radio. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
And those three songs, well, Dear Mama doesn't have. Does Dear Mama have a sing along hook too?
I mean, yes, but that's what I mean. Formula wise, that was more into the style of what he was doing. The song
Yeah.
is very somber. The melody
Yeah.
is very slow.
And I don't want to get into that one too much because we'll have a whole nother episode on Dear
And the
Mama.
sample's
But
more soulful, just to be honest. The
right.
sample's way more soulful. Like,
And
wait,
obviously Keep Your Head Up's got a singing hook too, right?
obviously,
So
obviously.
that seems to be, and we talked about this 100 times. Like when you're looking for, or when I'm looking for hip hop songs that have crossed over, one of the things, not all of them have, but many of them have, is something you can sing along to too. And
Right.
I think, and we'll talk about this actually when we get to the second song too, but that
Right. So okay. So
like
this
the
is what.
Dave Chappelle, like I don't know if you've seen, I know you've seen Chappelle's show, but I don't know if people watching this have seen the Chappelle show sketch with John Mayer in it, where they go to the barber shop and he's playing guitar. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, where it's
Where
talking
he's
about the rhythm.
like black
The
people like
rhythm.
drums and Latin
Yes.
people like
White people
keyboards
like it
and
as
the
car,
white people like guitars. Yeah. So
and the Spanish
it feels
people
kind
like
of
what
like
is it?
that. So like
Spanish
putting the
people like
melody in it like that does it does the what I don't want to say it does white people's ears like that, but like that's what it kind of perks it it seems to be a common thread of a lot of the songs that crossed over, I guess.
it is. So this is one thing that I wanted to do too when I pull it up is that I wanted to see when it came out because I knew it was a posthumous song, and this is what I mean. It's put together by the masses. Like,
Oh, I didn't know that.
yes, this is posthumous.
I didn't know that. Okay.
I just wanted to see how posthumous it was because Pac died in '96. Okay,
Right.
so this is getting released in October of 1998.
Oh wow, that's way late.
And
Like too late, 2 years.
yes. So what I would try to submit to you with that is that I don't know if Pac ever lets this see the light of day,
Mm,
but because if I wonder if Heaven Got a Ghetto was the B side to something,
mm-hmm.
and this song theme wise is similar to that, and Pac was always the type of guy that was fresh and creating new things.
Right.
Somebody from Interscope heard the brilliance of what he was rapping and was able to put it together afterwards into
Okay.
this, but he wouldn't have taken that beat and that hook. And
Oh, okay.
that's why it really doesn't resonate in the black community like that.
I see what you're
It's
saying.
not even about the posthumous nature of it.
Mm-hmm.
It has more to do with how it was done in its posthumous nature. If that makes
Okay.
sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, a lot of his posthumous stuff resonated more outside of his core audience than with the core audience, but also too, he left a ton of classic shit for his core audience, like a ton.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so there was no need for us to really want to hear changes. 2 years after he died, we were still playing Machiavelli and All Eyes on Me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Changes was kind of like, I mean, I hate to say it wasn't for your people, it was for purchase and for sale though.
Yeah, oh, absolutely, it was.
Yeah,
I mean, from what you're saying, I'm saying that mirroring back what you said, it's not something that I knew beforehand, but
right. And but doesn't take away from any of the brilliance that we're talking
it's
about
still a
with the
really
writing.
good song.
Because the brilliance of the writing is why they picked it up and did what they did to it. They heard what he was saying and they're like, oh my God, like this guy's a genius.
And this is, it's like all the, I mean, I don't get into Prince's vault stuff, but like it's like stuff that that he's got buried away that we'll never hear.
But yeah, I wanted to get back into some more of your notes because there's a lot of places to go with this song. You know, we probably should have started off discussing the posthumous aspect of it. I just get so excited when I'm talking about Tupac. I have a tendency, and this is the writer in me. You know, this is one of those things that you don't realize till you're older too. He's one of my biggest inspirations as a writer.
Okay.
He is. And I didn't realize it until I got older. A lot of my directive writing style comes from him. Like I have a direct writing style at times, mostly where
You're
I
a direct person, generally.
right, I am, and that's where I relate to him. But he has a direct writing style that I feel like I kind of like adopted some and tried to craft some of my style. And he's one of my inspirations. You know, I actually thought of you this weekend, and we can jump into your notes after this. You know, when I
Yeah,
thought
sure.
of you, it wasn't this weekend. This past Thursday, you know, at According to Hip Hop, we're doing some expansion and some
Right.
growth,
Mm-hmm.
and we're bringing on a senior writer. Her name is Denim Muzan. I've known Denim's family. I've known her two older brothers for over 15 years now.
Okay.
She's 34, but she bought up. She was on a Zoom call with Mike and I, and she bought up Toni Morrison as an inspiration as a writer. And when she
One of the
said that,
greatest ever, if not the greatest ever.
I thought of you. I mean, and it's funny too because you know she named a couple other writers, but it feels like for all of us that are like over 25 and under 50,
Mm-hmm.
she's the name that always gets mentioned, male or female, as
Yeah.
the greatest writer. Because I mean, think about it. This is a 34-year-old black woman from the Bronx that thinks that she's one of the greatest. You're a 40-year-old white guy from the suburbs of Charlotte. I'm from the inner city of Charlotte. You know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
it's all like, no, no,
She,
no.
she
I'll
is,
take
she
her
is,
too.
not to go on too much of a tangent, but Toni Morrison, if she's not the greatest writer to ever live, she's certainly in the rarefied air with Shakespeare and those, like she's like way, 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 way at the top. Like
Yeah,
you can't, again, not to go on too much of an English teacher tangent, but like at the beginning of Song of Solomon, like there in the introduction, she writes like how in detail, like why she picked essentially every single fucking word on that first page. And it's just like, how how do you do that? Like it's again, guys, if you have not read song, I mean, if you haven't read the whole book, you should read the whole book too. But like, um, you can find online, I'm sure, a version of Song of Solomon and just read the introduction where she describes like how she put together the beginning of the book and why she chose all of those details. It's incredible,
I
incredible.
had to, you know, and you asked me this question. We can end the tangent here. You know, you told me that you thought she was the greatest writer ever, and I was like, oh, I don't know about that. You know, and I'm like you. I was like, well, up there, obviously. Like, you know what I mean? I'm not
Mm-hmm.
saying that. I was like, I'm not sure about it. And then I texted you back a couple days later, and I was like, hey, I think you're right. Because, you know, I just started going through some of my stuff. W.E.B. Du Bois is probably my favorite
Mm-hmm.
writer,
Yeah,
personally.
right.
I love what he says when he's writing. I love Langston Hughes' writing style.
Yeah,
But
me
I
too.
thought, and then I thought to myself, well, she does both of those things and puts them in a book format that's actually entertaining too. Well, what the fuck?
Yes. She does those things. She does dialect. She does everything. She does
Well, see, that's
everything.
what I mean. WEB to me does dialect too, but it's just different type of dialect because of the subject matter.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Her subject matter, she knows how to do that. She knows how to talk about the black condition in a sneaky manner without, you know what I'm saying? Like all the other black writers are usually like, look at this black condition. Look
Yeah.
at this black
She
condition.
is she's entertaining. I'm not saying the others aren't entertaining, but
Not
like
like her.
it's not the same. It's not.
It's not the
Um,
same. It's like she she's Biggie. She's just more versatile than all those other great ones are. She's
she's
just got more style than they do. She just does. She
mm.
just does. She has more style than they do.
Rest in
Like,
peace, Tony, Dr. Tony. Like you're yeah,
uh,
an inspiration still are.
yeah, yeah.
Um,
She's
this is
gonna
that.
live forever.
Oh
She's gonna
yeah,
live forever.
oh, for sure, absolutely, without
Yeah.
question. This is an actually interesting segue because I wrote a couple notes about James Baldwin on here too, who is another one of those people in that canon, up there with her. One of the things that I think I've talked about this in actually probably the other Tupac episode too, where he has a book called Notes of a Native Son, which is obviously a callback to Richard Wright's Native Son novel. It's a series of essays, and there's an essay in there about his father's death, called Notes of a Native Son. Um, and it touches both on his relationship with his father and his relationship with like the larger American culture.
Mhm.
Not to put too fine a point on it, but there are several places that there seem to be overlap in what he's saying, and he's writing about experiences. Baldwin is. The essay comes out, I think, 1955. The experiences he's writing about are 1940s ish, like so it's in New Jersey, mostly New Jersey, New York. Um, and there's a scene that he writes about, that I thought about when I listened to Pac's line, "I see no changes, all I see is racist faces." Like, there's a scene where he talks about where he got him. He was Baldwin says he got writes that he got himself in a lot of trouble a lot of the time because he couldn't
Mhm.
keep his mouth shut. Those
Yep.
are his words, not mine. And one of the times he talks about like walking down the street after getting off of his factory job in New
Yeah, I
Jersey,
know what you're talking
and
about.
it feels like all of the white faces are walking at him, or he's
Hmm.
like walking not the wrong way down the street, but he's walking
He
one way
feels
and
like
everybody else is
walking
walking.
in antithesis to with the way that they're
Yeah,
coming.
and he talks about, and that's in that scene he feels like this rising like hatred and anger, and like he almost describes it as like feelings he doesn't know what to do with. Like there's just so much emotion he can't like process it all. And I believe the phrase he uses is he goes into a restaurant where he knows not even the intercession of the Virgin Mary will cause him to be served. This is in 1940s America, so
Right.
there's still segregation. Um, and he takes his anger out on the waitress there. Like she comes in, is like obviously she has been sent over to him, like
Hmm.
um to say, I'm sorry, we don't serve people like you here, which is kind of a crappy thing on her boss's part to make her do it. But because she asked him like, "What do you want?" or something like that, and he says, "I want like a hamburger and a cup of coffee. What do you think I want?" And he ends up throwing um, a coffee mug like at her, and she kind of it misses her and like smashes on the mirror behind the bar, and like that like snaps him out of his reverie. But there are lots of moments like that in the song where he's Tupac is writing about the same kind of thing, I think. And the idea that he ends this essay also with, um, where he talks about life is always going to have something difficult in it, and that because men are so he doesn't use these words exactly, but men are greedy and selfish and vengeful and stuff like that. Humans are, so in those ways things will always be the same. Like things are never going to change as long as humans are like this, but that doesn't mean we don't have to fight against it too. Like, so you have to hold both of those ideas in your mind at the same time, both that things probably aren't going to change and that you have to try to make them both at the same time. And that's what the song is, right? Like that's what you're going on.
It's a great expression of the dualities of what Tupac is seeing and has seen growing up, but what he still aspires to be. He's very inspirational for his generation, not to the same level, but it's very Dr. King like in that
Mm-hmm.
sense, in terms of the level of inspiration that
Right.
his words provide at times. It's not to the same level because I think people don't understand because I thought about something when you said James Baldwin, and I thought to myself, you know, James Baldwin's just he was too slick at the mouth to be Dr. King because he thought
Even
because
he said that he's too slick of the mouth. Like
no,
Baldwin
no, no,
himself
no.
said that.
If you've seen his interviews and even how James Baldwin sits and positions himself in the way that he approaches somebody in debate form, it's like no, the same thought and ideologies as Dr. King.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny enough, but the delivery matters. And there's something about Tupac's delivery because of the passion and the pain and the thoughtful expression of it.
Hmm.
It resonates the way Dr. King's does because it's like that excerpt that you're explaining from James Baldwin is like, oh, I know that expert, but I think you know how I am about shit like that.
Hmm.
Most people don't know that. Oh, but they know about Dr. King and and that's why I make the contextualization. It's like, oh no, you know Tupac because there are a lot of guys that thought like Tupac, but nobody expressed like
Yeah.
Tupac vocally. Just like Dr. King, nobody spoke like that vocally
No.
within the black community to that level. Even if you want to go, you can go look at Malcolm X's interviews
Hmm.
and debates. First of all, I think if you just want to go on an academic and intelligence level, he's smarter than Dr. King.
Okay.
But he's also fucking scarier. Like it's frightening to watch Malcolm X break down some of his white contemporary counterparts. Like it's frightening. It's like, oh yeah, he's scared of this big black motherfucker. He's this smart too.
Yeah.
Like he's taking biblical ideology. Can you imagine a Muslim man sitting in front of a Christian white man and taking his ideologies and ripping them apart from him on national television? Because that's what Malcolm X was like doing. And it's like, as a black man, it makes me smile, but I also understand it's like, oh, but that wasn't going to go so far.
Right.
Society's not going to let you
And
go.
Dr. King is speaking the same language because he's a minister too, right? Like
correct. And so, but delivery and voice is everything. What I'm literally saying is, well, when you listen to Dr. King's voice, it's a better speaking voice, and he doesn't have James Baldwin or Malcolm X's sharp tongue. It's more thoughtful and philosophical.
Yeah.
It is.
Yeah.
From the hills of Georgia, where the hand of every little white girl and every little black. No, I mean, James Baldwin is telling you, it's like, man, I feel like I'm walking this way, and the white people are just going in the other direction, not paying me any fucking mind.
They're
You
like
know?
almost like running into me. Like, yeah.
Right. They're trying to run me over. And Dr. King's like, can we just walk down the street together?
Yeah.
And that's kind of some of what changes is. You know what I mean? It's some of both of those things. It's like some Malcolm X and some Dr. King in there. It's both sides of the game.
Yeah. And I think that's a good like circling point there that Tupac is one of those guys that contains, I think I said this before, contains multitudes. Like he can speak, and you said this too, that he can speak to both the hippie and to the street kid, and he has his message reverberates with all of them because of the passion and the pain and because of, I mean, and the voice and like all of it, like it touches
Hey,
all of those points.
there's a reason that he was a touching point for all that parental advisory stuff. He was saying things that they didn't like him saying. It wasn't about bitch.
Profanity. Yep.
It was about the crack era stuff, about the socioeconomic stuff, about telling people, no, the government killed Huey Newton. How about that? Like, no, that's where all that parental advisory stuff came from. Listen to the stuff that he's saying on this record.
No, I did. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. No. That's where that's why I see Dolores Tucker's, literally, and Bob Dole taking steamrollers over, strictly for my niggas. Yeah, because he was literally like, no, he's like, they put crack here. I ran Iraq, contraband. He's a very, very well read guy,
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There's an interesting part, and this kind of, I think, transitions to, he starts verses with "I see no changes," and then one of them he ends with "but things change," and that's just the way it is. Like he's even seeing both sides of the story within the same verse too.
I mean,
or am I full of crap here?
No, there's a lot of prophecy with Pac. There's a lot of prophecy with Pac. It's like you're listening to this song in 1998. I mean, this is, I want to say, this is strictly for my niggas and Me Against the World, Tupac. So this song probably got written somewhere between 93, 94,
Okay.
95-ish. He might have written it when he was locked up at Rikers. So it could have been 95-ish.
Mm-hmm.
But the writing of it is early to mid 90s, like post Desert Storm,
Okay.
but pre-Death Row, just because of the writing style and the things that he's talking about. This is the Pac that loves his community. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, Pac still loves his community after he signs with Death Row, but he's been to prison on a rape charge. He's been shot 5 times right before he went to prison. And then he gets out and he signs to Death Row. It's like, all bad, all bad, all bad. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so we lose some of our community figure in there. So I know that this song precedes that era and those things happen. This was the more hopeful and positive side of him. And that's what even makes me think Pac is more hopeful about the black community on his first two albums, on Tupacalypse Now and Strictly for My Niggas. There's a lot of uplifting rhetoric and commentary. And even the songs that float around from that time that don't land on those albums, but land on soundtracks and unreleased stuff and stuff on the Above the Rim soundtrack. Like, but there is something that takes place, and a lot of it is, you know, the shooting and a lot of the stuff that was happening hip hop wise, where when Me Against the World was coming out, he's doing stuff like Death Around the Corner. It's like, well, he talked like that, but he didn't talk like that before. This is the more hopeful Tupac. This is early Tupac. I would say this was written 1992, 93.
Okay. Now, that was the last thing I wrote on this piece of paper, actually, is you think that this is a hopeful song.
It is, but also, too, it makes me hard to listen to sometimes because it's like, what would it be like if he was here for black people and for hip hop? So,
yeah, and stuff.
Hopeful,
I don't know how else.
Hopeful, but somber, just like him. Hopeful but somber is how the song makes me feel, which is exactly who he was. He was hopeful, but he was very somber too. Well, you want to know what? I love the different ways. You know, it's funny. Part of where this song connects is that, well, Tupac is such a great writer that he could, because he wrote changes, and that's the way it is. And they were able to go connect it to your community. One thing that I've noticed, and even you just said it and you brought it up, and I guess this might be some foreshadowing. Oh, well, the guitar playing on the next song that we are about to discuss is what carries it. And can I say something that I think is funny too?
Yeah, for sure.
Prince, more than Jimi Hendrix, changed the way black people feel about the guitar.
That makes sense.
I literally said to myself when Circumstances was playing, I was like, I would not enjoy this song if I was not a Prince fan first.
Okay.
You know, because of the guitars, because there's no real bass or bass line like that. It's mostly a guitar riff. And I'm thinking, like, no, but I can deal with it because of Prince. I hear it. I'm familiar. You know,
this is 1978, so it would have been like in the same kind of Prince wheelhouse
style.
kind of time.
Style. That's what I mean. It's like, well, I don't pull up and listen to "Are You Experienced" by Jimi Hendrix every day, but I play me some Sign of the Times and Purple Rain in 1999 and Controversy Around the World in a Day. And so the guitar playing on here is what struck me. I just thought about what we're doing with this show to just kind of connect the dots. And I just thought about Prince's guitar playing. I was like, Prince's guitar playing is connecting a dot for me right now because I'm able to listen to songs and appreciate them and enjoy them on a level that I don't think I would if I didn't appreciate his genius as guitar playing so much. Now, because he's my barometer for those things, it's like, well, no, I want to hear how everybody stacks up against my guy playing the guitar. You feel me? It's like, I want to hear, like, no. What's your best guitar riff? You got some Let's Go Crazy in there for me? You're going to switch it up 3 times like he did on Computer Blue? Well, I want to hear those things out of guitar-driven songs now. And so the first thing that I noticed about this next song we're about to cover is the guitar, actually, which is funny coming from a hip-hop guy.
No, the guitar is the thing that's in your face in this song. Not in all of their songs, but in this one. This is Rush is a
I don't know them at all.
Yes, you said you don't know them at all?
I've heard the name, but I'm not familiar at all.
Perfect. So they're a Canadian band. They're a 3-piece. So all of those sounds you're hearing are just from 3 people. The guy singing is also playing the bass at the same time, which is if you can't, the bass is in there, but they're not. It's not quite so pyrotechnic, I guess. But the 3 guys, Alex Lifeson, the guitarist, Geddy Lee, who's the vocalist and bassist, and Neil Peart, the drummer. I told you this before, but I don't know that I would make this argument, but you probably you could reasonably make the argument that all 3 of them are the best at their instrument in the history of rock music. Like it's probably not true, but like I think the example that I gave you was like it would be like saying that Big is the greatest rapper of all time. You may disagree with what I'm saying, but it's a reasonable argument, right?
Reasonable argument in the conversation, right? Yeah. So let's go back to who they are and what they play again, or what the position is. Give me their names again.
The guitarist's name is Alex Lifeson, and the bass player's name Geddy Lee, and Lee, the drummers. I'm sorry.
Have they done outside work of each other? Have they like?
Not that I'm aware of. It is
Okay.
absolutely possible, and I'm sure that Rush fans will get in the comments and tell me, because this is not my area of super expertise.
Okay.
Um, like I learned about Rush when my roommate in college was obsessed, like with the prog rock stuff, Rush and Yes and Jethro Tull, that kind of stuff. They are one of the most famous, they call it prog rock, progressive rock bands,
Okay.
which is like really long songs with movements and different pieces to them, that don't sound the same all the way through. You even heard in
Yes.
circumstances like
Yes.
there's like four or five
Yes.
different pieces
Yes. No,
of
I
it.
love stuff like that.
So it's multifaceted, but like they have lots of songs, Rush do, that are like five movements and 20-25 minutes long. Like, so this like,
That's a little too much.
yeah, but they're I don't know. You just have to listen. Again, this is not a thing that I don't want to say I don't love and respect it, but like it's not something that I listen to like driving around or whatever. But I
Now,
learned about it because my roommate was like a jazz guitar major essentially, and yeah, so he was playing this like all the time, um,
yeah,
and so the guitar in it is pretty incredible. Like,
it
um,
is. There's some top
it's
notch
really
stuff
really
going
good.
on.
I'm going to drop some in here. I have a former student actually who is a big Rush fan. He's in his 30s now, but I asked him to play some of the riffs for me, so I'll drop them in here so people can hear them.
Yeah,
um
yeah.
because they're pretty heavy. um the guitarist and bass player, I mean, they are certainly among the greatest of their genre. Generally speaking, their drummer Neil Peart, who just passed away like in the last year, is widely considered to be the best rock and roll drummer, like by
Oh,
most people. Like it's not much of an argument. I'll put a picture of his drum kit up on the screen here.
so they got the drummer. Hmm.
Um,
Now I want to hear more. Because not to
it's
be funny, I am black. I am a hip hop guy. Well, that's based on the drums.
Yep,
I like drum work. Just fundamentally speaking, we're taught bass and drum. Yeah,
yep,
that shit's real. Like a lot of people, I feel like, and I'm just gonna sidebar while you're doing that right
yeah,
quick. Part of why Chappelle's show was so important to me is because he let you know that a lot of the stereotypes that existed were stereotypes for a valid ass reason,
yeah.
and you couldn't
See, look at
just
that,
run.
look at that though. That's the drums the drum kit he played on.
It's
Yeah,
like that's a Sheila E drum set.
yeah. It's big time. Yep,
Yeah,
yep.
it's a big time drum set.
So, um, yeah, he's widely considered to be the best, the most, at least the most technically proficient drummer. And you
Right.
can hear it in the song too. Like it's, I looked up something like it changes time signature something like 70 times back and forth to
Hmm.
different rhythm, and you can hear it in the rhythms like a little bit. You don't even like, even if you know nothing about time signatures, I know you do, but like if the listeners don't know anything about what that
Mhm.
means, um, listen to song circumstances and listen to how often the beat changes,
Changes.
because it
Yeah.
happens a lot. And the song's
So
about change, so it makes sense. But like,
you want to know? Okay, so I'm gonna tell you who kind of taught me that via the hip hop way.
mm-hmm.
The RZA on shadow boxing
Okay.
with Method Man and the Jizza does it. I was like, my cousin is the one that caught it first. It's like, no, he's having to switch up the beat and the time circumstance of it actually three
Mm-hmm.
different times to let them jump in seamlessly and effectively on the track. He said he's hiding it behind the scratches. When it
Mm-hmm.
scratched is when he would switch the pattern. So yeah, and so that's how I learned that. You know what I mean? So I didn't even learn
Mm.
it musically. I learned it from the scratches of RZA on Shadowboxing that you
That's
could
cool.
actually do that on a beat and manipulate the shit out of people.
That's and it's hard to do. Like, I
It's
don't think
hard.
there are very many hip hop songs that are not 4/4. I mean, there are a few, but like they're not many. Um,
The boundaries now are a little different, but that was one of the things I think that Wu Tang Clan kind of broke down. When you actually go back and listen to that stuff, it has he just bended a lot of structures.
yeah.
Bended a lot of structures. They bended a lot of bar styles and frameworks. He extended a lot of loops. He chopped a lot of shit. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
He did a whole lot. So I think a lot of the innovation of what happens beyond the bar style comes from the innovation of those artists. And him wanting to get the best out of those artists. It's like you might hear a Wu-Tang Clan song where it's like where you hear one guy for 6 bars and then hear another guy for 9, and then another guy will go for 32, and you're like, hold on, let me do. You're like, hold on,
How does that add up exactly?
and then you're like, hold on, that doesn't add up the math, but the timing of it is right, and that's when you learn about right because they did that a lot,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I would say
It's,
though that
it's,
like my friend who I have lost touch with, like my roommate in college, he's a non-internet person, so he's kind of disappeared into the ether. But hi John, if you're watching this. But I would say that people who like Rush like love them. Like this is like an obsession. I don't want to make it like a Dungeons and Dragons thing because it's but you do see those two things track along with each other sometimes. But it's an obsession. And I don't mean that, don't fight me guys, but like it's I don't mean that as a bad thing. It just is a thing that they really like love. Like if you also don't love them, like you're you know, like stupid and uncultured, and I'm probably going to internet fight you kind of way. Um, much like Beyonce or Taylor Swift's fans.
well,
What I'm sure they would love to be compared to them,
I'm
but
gonna
that's the way
tell
it is.
you. I'm gonna tell you the first thing that I realized when you started this stuff. Now my daughter's taking French. You know, in high school, she just finished her first year in French, and so when you told me that they came from Canada, I was like, well, that explains the French in the hook. You see how we start connecting all the
Yep,
dots, people. That
yep,
was the first thing that I noticed. I
yeah.
was like, oh, because I was gonna
They're
ask
from
you.
Toronto, yeah.
Okay, so original thought was like, man, these are it's pretty cool French band.
Yeah.
Because when I'm listening to the hook, I'm listening to the verbiage, the laissez,
Mm-hmm.
like my daughter would say bon and all these other
Yeah.
laissez in the feminine.
Right.
She's like, they use the feminine in French more than any other like love language. And laissez is like one of those frequently used. And so when they were using that on the hook, I was immediately thinking that this was a European band. And then you're like, they're from Canada. I'm like, well, same difference.
No, for those of you who haven't heard the song, you should go down and click on the link down below. I'll put the link to the song there. But part of the hook is plus ça change, plus c'est la même chose. Like it's, and then he translates to the next two lines. The more that things change, the more they stay the same.
Now here's another thing too that I realized, and you just brought this up. I was actually you just answered it for me. I'm like, well, where in Canada are they from? Because I'm going to tell you what, this writing style and
Mm,
this verbiage is very dark and it's very dense. Actually,
it is,
you're
yeah.
just
It
getting
is really a
lost
dark
in it.
song.
You're just getting lost in it to it because of them happy ass guitars playing. It's wonderful guitar playing. It's
Mm-hmm.
like almost the guitar is tricking you from the dense nature of the lyrics, and it's dark in a sense. It's like this is what I mean. Toronto, hip hop wise, Drake is from Toronto, right?
Right.
A lot of his early stuff is Wu Tang inspired,
Okay.
dark,
Mm-hmm.
gritty. So Toronto has a dark and a gritty feel, and that's why I was about to ask you. I was like, well, these motherfuckers can't be from Vancouver because I've been through Vancouver. Vancouver's
Vancouver
not.
is nice.
I didn't want to say it like that, but yes,
No, it
Vancouver's very.
is like,
And
and
and this
Toronto's got is like an East Coast city. Like
Yeah, Toronto's like an East Coast city, and Toronto has some parts to it that are very dark and very dense. I believe the weekend is from there too.
mm-hmm.
And so when I got the verbiage, I was like, in the Canadian thing and all that, that literally just rushed to my mind as you were saying that. I was like, well, that explains the French and that explains the dark, dense verbiage. They're from Toronto. That's the French and that's the dark and the dense.
Yeah.
Because they also, too, culturally, they like music like that. That's why I mean
Mm-hmm.
Drake bringing up the Drake is a Wu Tang fan. It's like, think about that. Drake is a big Wu Tang fan.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
he
those are
makes
not two
music.
names that you would normally think of
Right,
being like,
but
yeah.
but where he comes from, that's how they roll. Toronto used to have this guy Cardinal Official used to be pretty big on the underground scene.
Mm-hmm.
It was like making waves here, and people have to understand Toronto's not, you know, Toronto's probably close to New York City than we are in travel time. You feel me?
Yep.
That's one of those things too. But that was just some of the that was just some epiphanies I was having when you were just telling me about where they were from. So but we can go ahead and get into a little bit more.
Like the lyrical content also is similar-ish to Tupac's. Like the when you're talking about changing, like that's like he says the walls that still surround me still contain the same old me, just one more who's searching for a world that ought to be. Like that's not miles away from what Tupac is saying either.
No, it's very comparable, actually. The start offs to these songs are very comparable if you remove the racist contextualization of them, actually. The
Mm-hmm.
circumstances that are being expressed on the song circumstances
Mm-hmm.
are comparable to what's
Yeah.
being expressed on changes if you take the racial connotation out of it. But
Yeah,
that's also the thing about it, about being a black man in America. Well, how can we remove the racial
you
connotation?
can't. You can't. That's
You
part. That's
can't.
part of it, right?
It's part of it. And so they're speaking to what they know as much as they can, because what the fuck do they really know about racism? They're white men growing up in Toronto.
Yeah, but I mean, they're immigrant too. I mean, at least the Alex Leipzig. I don't know what his real name is. It's Russian or something like that. Don't. I'm.
Oh,
It's one
that's
of those
interesting.
changed names. Racism aside, they would be like Irish or Italians growing up in New York. It's like that working class, or like Oasis in Manchester. I mean, it's like
Yeah.
that kind of working
Uh,
class.
yeah.
Um,
Understood. Like
um,
they're
Alexander
they're white.
Zivojinovic. I'm sorry, guys. You will have to tell me how to pronounce it in the comments. But yeah, that sounds like Serbian, Czech, that kind of name.
Sounds
Polish,
a little
maybe.
sounds Czechy more than Polish. I got a Czechy friend, and
Yeah,
her last name is comparable to that.
yeah.
And she hates when I used to call her Czechy. Um, she does. She used to laugh, be like, "Don't call me Czechy, Armand. I'm only letting you get away with it because you're black." True story. True story. No, you said something strong right there, because this is one of the reasons why we need to do this too. It's like, oh, their white privilege might just be that they're white and nothing else. You can have it just as hard.
Yeah.
Sometimes, I mean, what people have to understand, white privilege exists because of the whiteness, not because of the finances.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
And
I just
I'm not in any way
to
suggesting that
make
they're
that
not
point.
privileged, but like
Right.
it's
I
just
kind of wanted to make that point, because a black man, like, speaking about white privilege, it's like I don't ever want it to come off that I'm just speaking about, oh, well, they're white, so they had it made. It's like, no,
no,
that's not true. Not
no,
true.
no. They just didn't have that particular
Right.
circumstance.
Right.
But
Well,
they
I
probably
mean,
had lots of others.
you know what I thought was really funky too, because when I pulled these songs up, obviously I'm pulling them up, and it's how the world works now with our digital downloads and stuff. It pulls up the album covers,
Hmm.
and so when I saw the album cover,
For
and
those of you
then
who don't
because
know, it's like guys walking on a brain, basically.
it's a naked man standing on the right side of the brain.
And the album's called Hemispheres, as in hemispheres of the.
Right, and I think, yeah, and there's like, and it's he's walking on, but there's a guy with glasses from a distance
Hmm.
looking, and so when you put that with the words for somebody that's not familiar with the band, I'm like, these guys are interesting.
Yeah, they're weird
Like
dudes,
I immediately became
lyrically speaking. Yeah,
well, no, I immediately became fascinated, because it's like, oh well, they're artistic apparently.
hmm.
They're obviously not afraid to push the boundaries, because they have a naked ass man sitting on their album cover in the
And for
1970s.
those of you who haven't seen it before, it's like a little bitty. It's not like
No, yeah, it's not no big naked dude, but it's like you see the naked body, and then you realize it's like that's a man, and he's standing on somebody's brain, walking apparently, and and it's very well done. You can tell an artist actually did
yeah,
it, and then you actually are playing the song and you're listening to the lyrics, and then they're mixing some of the French in, and it's like, well, no, I'm not going to go off this one song and say this is the type of band that you rave over, but usually when bands do funky shit like that and put it together, they get usually big fandoms, and so I can
yeah,
see some of the fandom that you're speaking to, and it might be cultish, but I can see the fandom just from
yeah,
artistically how they put it together, the writing style, the musicality of the guitar playing is there. So think
yeah.
about it: they're artistic, well written, musicality is there. It's a great song. Check, check, check,
Yeah.
checky.
Yeah, yeah,
So I enjoyed it. No, this was a pretty dope song.
yeah. It's for those of you, again, you need to listen to it, not you, but like the people who are listening to this who haven't heard the song
Well,
should go listen to
well,
it. It's
well, I can relate to this. So listen to hold on. Is this where it starts off? Because I just pulled it up because I want to make sure I could read it too, because I didn't know these words were for real. Listen to this. I can relate to this. Like, this doesn't sound too far, Andrew. This isn't too far from the whole right up the street from
yep.
where Charlotte, where we went to school. A boy alone, so far from home. Endless rooftops from my window. I left the gloom of empty rooms on rainy afternoons. Sometimes in confusion, I felt so lost and disillusioned. Innocence gave me confidence to go up against reality. I mean, I can tell you that that's my life story in high school.
Yeah.
You know
And
that.
yeah, and it's not that's
Like, if
again
Tupac said,
that's an example of something that touches lots of people from lots of different
no,
places, right?
that's what I mean about this was actually the perfect song. If Tupac says that, it lives in my mind forever.
Oh,
You get
cool.
what I'm saying?
I do see what you're saying. Yeah.
If Tupac says that, it lives in my mind forever.
Hmm.
Like, I mean, it's probably still going to live in my mind because we're doing this show
Right.
and I have reference point now. but has an arbitrary listener. Like when we're putting things together, this is one of the few songs where, not to be funny, where the depth and the reality of an artist that we're covering on your side, I can actually say to you, it's like, no, one of my best guys on my side would say that. That's how good the writing is, but that's
Good.
how real the writing is.
That's
Like,
nice.
because even with, not to be funny, even with Joni and even with Janice, it's sometimes a little too artsy and not real enough.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, you can take the metaphor too far and lose people that are stuck in a struggle that you don't know about.
Okay.
And some of the music has a lot of feministic qualities to it, and it should, because women need that shit.
Mm-hmm.
You feel me?
And she's Canadian too. But anyway, carry on.
Makes perfect sense. But something like this is relatable, to a black kid from the projects. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like the actual words being used and the situation being described is actually relatable to a black kid from the projects. The songwriting on this is intrinsically higher to me because of that cross appeal. And so that's why I'm bringing up Joni and Janice. Is like, no, that's where I'm putting this type of songwriting, because it transfers in a way that even their stuff doesn't.
Yeah.
But a lot of that is due to the feministic nature, because they're not trying to make shit for the streets.
No, right, exactly. That's not the purpose of that. And this has some savage guitar in it too. Like again, I'll play some of it for you, but I'll cut it back in. But like it's heavier, not like Metallica heavier, or Black Sabbath heavier, but like it is.
It's not heavy metal, but it's very like I said, it made me think when I was hearing stuff like this. It's like, oh, well, give me like I bought up Let's Go Crazy and Computer Blue for a reason, because those are rock guitar riffs.
Yep.
That's rock and roll that he's playing on those songs. That's not an R&B fused version. Because how about this? Like Raspberry Beret is like an R&B fused version.
And Prince obviously can play everything. Like it's
he can play everything. I'm just giving some examples. It's like I bought up Let's Go Crazy for a reason. No, that's some rock and roll ass guitar playing going on. This song is that. That's why I was bringing it up. Like, because that's how I have to compare it.
Right. Sure. Right. But other people who are listening to it, who are coming here from According to Hip Hop or whatever, who are coming to check this out too, are going to have many probably of the same checkpoints too. Like, so and I want them to go listen to this too. Like, this is this is not my most favorite music in the world, but like it's incredibly skillful and it's pretty cool stuff.
You want to know? And I'm about to make a note of it right now, because I think this is important. Like, this is one of those songs. Like, remind me on Wednesday, because like Mike, when we do the show, it's like he always asks me, like, what's up, what you got going on. I want to bring up to our audience that I want our audience to listen. I'm gonna bring up this show and how we compared Tupac's changes to Rush's Circumstances, and I want some of the According to Hip Hop listeners to go listen to Rush's Circumstances and tell me if they feel like I'm gonna bring up the whole Tupac comment, because I feel like Tupac, like, it has some Tupac writing qualities to it, and I want to see
it does.
No, I want to see what the audience thinks about it, because I think this is the best hip hop pairing writing wise that I can take back to the According to Hip Hop audience. It's like, you hear this shit? Like, you hear these bars?
Yeah. And honestly, I never really, until we had this conversation, never really had the same amount of respect for Rush's like writing, like the lyrical content. I just love the guitars and the music, and like it just sounds good.
No, it's there.
But then, and that's one of the great parts about the show, is like I can hear it again for the first time through somebody else's eyes, and it's a really cool thing.
Okay, well, listen to this. That's all the same time we take our chances, laughed at by the time, tricked by circumstances. No, those are bars.
There are bars, and they're Tupac bars. Like they're exactly it's the same thing, right?
Yeah, no, this is great writing. This is great stuff they're doing on a great guitar lick. That's what I mean. And then I looked at the artwork. It's like, no, I'm gonna go listen to some more of their stuff. And they're not too far. They're from Toronto. It's gonna be interesting. I wonder why Drake hasn't used these guys. How old are they?
Who knows? They are. I mean,
they can't be that older. They dropped this in '78. When their career started, 70 probably, 69.
Yeah, no, they started like the first album was like mid '70s. Yeah.
Yeah, everybody we grew up on kind of started somewhere between like 68 and 74. So yeah. I'm legitimately in my robe today. Like, sometimes putting my robe on because I came down here, but it was a long weekend getting Sade ready for school and running around her and getting her to and from work, going to and from work, and just the whole school thing. And then having the plumber come over today, and then having the other technician come over today to fix the door. So I've like already had like a pretty full day.
Yep.
Probably when we're done with this, going to go slide right back into the bed for a little bit.
Yeah. I put on a clean shirt. I dumped pasta on myself before I came out here. So
Now, school started down here in good old Marietta, Georgia, suburb of Atlanta today. When does school start up in Charlotte?
they
You're in,
at least in my district,
right.
which is west of Charlotte.
Yeah.
The kids start the 17th. So week and a half, 2 weeks, something like that.
Yeah. That's my aunt's birthday, my aunt Sonia's birthday. I can actually um remember, didn't it feel like when we were younger, we started school around August 24th, somewhere
Yeah.
between the
And
17th and the
we've started school
24th?
August 24th or thereabout, between the 24th and 27th. This is my 20th year teaching. It makes me sound old, I know, sorry.
No,
But
congrats. No,
but
congrats.
this is 20. And all the ones in like this area of the world. I mean, I started earlier, like when I taught up in the mountains, but um this area of the world we've always started August 20 somethings.
Mm.
And this year, the reason, at least our count, I don't think Charlotte starts until the 25th or so. I think they're a week after us. But the reason we're starting earlier is we and most of the other districts around here got special permission from the state to start a week earlier. So this it doesn't matter for middle schools or elementary schools, but for high schools, this semester now is going to break at Christmas instead of like what it's been doing, which is like 2 weeks after Christmas or something like that. And like you get off for 2 or 3 weeks and then you come back to school and then you have like a week of review and then exams, which is kind of dumb. So we're doing exams before Christmas, which is um and last year we did that too, but we started later. So the first semester, this is more information than these people need to know. I'll probably cut it out, but we um, started like the 25th and ended before Christmas or the semester before Christmas. But the first semester was like 75 days, and then the second semester was like 112 or something like that, and
See,
it was just didn't work out well.
right. You see, but these diatribes are great when they're live because then people chime in about where they're from and how kind of school works
Right.
for them, kind of changes things. That's why it's like, well, I want people to like and subscribe so we can go live because the nuance of what you're saying isn't lost on any parent. And I think our demo
Yeah.
is probably more geared towards people who
Who are
probably,
our age-ish, yeah.
yeah, who have kids
Yeah.
that are in school and can understand and can relate and know the things that we're talking about. So,
Yeah,
but we
for
can
sure.
get to the music. That's always fun.
Yeah. I don't know. I might leave that in there, but like it's
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
or
No,
might cut it out and make it like a separate thing or something. I don't know.
cool, cool, cool.
We'll see.